They came in on the 31st.
On the 31st of December.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I would make a motion to table until we can review these and have an informed vote.
Okay. Second.
Motion, Shute, second, Roberts, that we table consent agenda item number 7. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda item number 7.
While you're reviewing, I do want
Table.
to point out one change on the very last one for the gas agency. I said there was only one payment in April 2010, and I didn't look under another version of the vendor for KMGA instead of spelling it out. So Bill has noted in his response, we've been billed a few more times besides that. I just want to point out that
Thank you.
my statement was incorrect.
Thank you.
New business item number 1. Consider approving a memorandum of understanding with the Gardner Area Chamber of Commerce, authorizing execution of same by city administrator and authorizing distribution of funds. Does anyone, I think that most of this is,
Yeah.
oh, Laura, you've got some
I was just
for
gonna-
presentations.
Yeah, you cut me off guard moving them around. I forgot we were doing that. As attached is the memorandum of understanding provided by the Gardner Area Chamber, and I will point out that the Chamber is funded from the transient guest tax revenue, and the stated $20,000 funding was included in the 2014 budget in the Economic Development Fund. If you approve this memorandum of understanding, it will authorize staff to distribute this in two halves, one by February 15th and one by July 15th, both of which are stated in the memorandum of understanding. This is the same structure that we used for the Southwest Johnson County EDC, and the Executive Committee of the Gardner Area Chamber are all here if you should have any further questions.
Thank you, Laura. At this time, with that being all of the staff presentation, we would open the floor to public comments. Any member of the public that has a commenter about new business item number 1 is welcome to step forward, state your name and address for the record, and be heard. With no one stepping forward, council have questions?
I did have a question about the source of the revenue. Do we have $20,000?
Mm-hmm. The transient guest tax? Mm-hmm.
Okay. There was a time where we were.
No, we actually, that is.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're funding from reserves, though, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
You make that much in transient guest tax. It's good. Actually, you make a little more than that.
But this is the first, right, in a long time, or not?
No, what we were funding other things from this fund as well. So we moved some of them to other places. This is where the chamber comes from and has come from, and was presented to you during budget.
Okay.
Other questions?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with the Gardner Area Chamber of Commerce, authorize execution of same by the city administrator, and authorize the distribution of 2 tranches of $10,000 apiece over the next calendar year, totaling $20,000 to the Chamber of Commerce.
Second.
Motion, Shute. Second, Harrison, that we approve the memorandum of understanding with the Gardner Area Chamber of Commerce, authorizing the execution of same by city administrator and authorizing the distribution of funds. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. New business item number 2. Consider approval of a revised purchasing policy. Laura.
So, per the governing body's request, staff has revised the city's purchasing policy in order to increase efficiency, implement best practices, and protect the city from the potential for fraud and abuse. Staff respectfully request the governing body consider implementing this policy citywide to alleviate the non-compliance issues that we're getting with the consent agenda each time.
Mm-hmm.
I also, it was staff's understanding that you specifically requested to review this in order to implement parts of the practices of the EUB that you felt were successful which is why we're doing this review. And that's also how staff arrived at the recommendations included in this policy. So would you care for me to walk through the summary of the changes? I don't want to insult you. You would, okay. The recommended expenditure, recommended expenditure approval authorities, we would be increasing the department director's expenditure authority from 5,000 to 10,000, increasing the city administrator's expenditure authority from 15 to 50,000, and council will approve anything over 50,000. As far as adding in procedures, we added and more clearly defined source selection, competitive bidding, and awards for goods and services, including increasing the threshold expenditure amount allowed for small purchases, which means no competition, no competitive bids are required, from 1,000 to 5,000, and allowing approved purchases up to that amount on purchasing cards for the purpose of efficiency and eliminated time and associated expense incurred with pushing paper. Increasing the threshold expenditure amount allowed for informal solicitations, in other words, quotes, from 15,000 to 30,000. This expedites smaller purchases and projects instead of engaging in time-consuming RFP processes. Sometimes we fail to get responses, when we, like the banking services, for one. Increasing the threshold expenditure amount allowed before requiring a formal bid or RFP process from 15 to 30. Same reason, it mitigates delays in projects. Professional services are slightly different. We would allow, it was not delineated before in our old purchasing policy, now we've moved out professional services, and now we would allow services less than 10,000 may be procured just by the requesting department, and with the city administrator's prior approval, up to 30. Professional services less than 50 may be procured without competition with the city administrator's approval. Professional services greater than 50,000 would require a formal RFP process and council approval, and as budget law, any multi-year contract requires council approval. We also included best practices that were not previously included in our old policy regarding formal competitive bidding and RFP processes, including cross-departmental evaluation committees, procedures for evaluation and award process, the definitions of responsive and responsible bidders, the conditions for waiving or rejecting bids, any process for protested solicitations or awards. And with that, it's your policy, so whatever you'd like to do.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
We're going to open the floor for, you might want to stand by. We haven't had a rush for the podium at this point yet. I don't know if it's going to change now, but at this point, we would open the floor to public comments. There's a member of the public that would like to speak about new business item number 2. I invite you to come forward and be heard. With no one coming forward, Christy, I believe you have a question for Laura?
Laura, and I'm not sure the exact number, but I know for the bid process, when we have to publicize an RFP, I think the cost was somewhere around $1,500 or roughly per. Do we have any idea by increasing these, the savings that we'll see by not having to follow that formal process?
Well, I can think that we have a couple of things, projects that you had in your 2014 budget that this would alleviate some of those, so at least 2, maybe 3, and I don't really know what, you're going to have a CIP program as well, so hard telling. I would say it's not insignificant, but I don't know that it would be a rise to the level to make that your determination.
Right, okay, thank you.
How was the decision made to increase the, those increments from director and city administrator? That was a comparison of?
Yeah, there was a review of the cities of Olathe, Lenexa, Leawood, Shawnee, and taking their policies in addition to council's consensus request to implement those things which make the EUB more efficient and more successful in the governing body's opinion. Just the combination. It's merely an attempt to marry those two.
This doesn't really